They said I was insane. They said I had lost my mind. In a cold American courtroom, my own stepmother stood up and told the judge I was dangerous, unstable, and unfit to live a normal life. Everyone stared at me like I was already guilty. But there was one thing she never expected. One truth she thought would stay buried forever. And when the judge leaned forward and looked closer at the evidence, the entire courtroom went silent. Because in that moment the real story began to unfold. And the woman who tried to destroy me realized she had just exposed herself instead. My name is Aria Vance, and everything you are about to hear sounds like a nightmare, but it is my real life. I was not always standing in a courtroom fighting to prove my sanity. There was a time when my life felt normal, simple, even peaceful. I grew up in a quiet town in the United States with my father, who was my entire world. My mother passed away when I was very young, so it was always just the two of us. He worked hard and gave me everything he could: love, support, and a sense of safety that I never questioned. Things changed when he married her. Her name was Elena, and from the very beginning something felt wrong, but I was too young to understand it. She smiled too much, but her eyes were always cold. She spoke softly in front of my father, but the moment he left the room her voice would turn sharp like glass, cutting through silence. At first it was small things. She would hide my belongings and then blame me for being careless. She would whisper things in my ear telling me I was weak, telling me no one would believe me if I ever tried to speak. The worst part was how perfect she acted in front of my father. He adored her completely, and I slowly started to feel invisible in my own home. Years passed, and the emotional games became darker. She would manipulate situations to make me look unstable. If I cried, she called me dramatic. If I defended myself, she called me aggressive. She started telling my father that I needed help, that I was not normal. I remember the first time she used the word insane. It felt like something inside me broke. My father did not fully believe her at first, but doubt is a dangerous seed, and she planted it carefully. Every single day, she created stories, twisted small incidents into something bigger, until even I started questioning my own reality. Then one night, everything changed. I heard them arguing behind closed doors. Her voice was calm, but his was filled with confusion. She was convincing him that I needed professional evaluation, that I was a danger to myself and possibly to others. I stood there frozen, listening to my own life being rewritten without my voice. Within weeks, I was taken to a specialist. I tried to explain everything, but Elena was always one step ahead. She had documents, notes, and even recordings that made me sound unstable. She had been planning this for years, building a case against me while pretending to be a caring stepmother. The doctor seemed unsure, but Elena pushed harder. Eventually, the legal process began. I was terrified. Standing in that courtroom felt like standing in front of a storm that I could not escape. My own stepmother was testifying against me, claiming I had episodes, claiming I imagined things, claiming I was not safe to live independently. People believed her. Why would they not? She was calm, composed, and convincing. And I was just a young girl fighting to be heard. But there was something she did not know. Something she never expected me to keep. Over the years, when things started feeling wrong, I began documenting everything secretly. I recorded conversations, I saved messages, I kept a hidden journal where I wrote down every detail, every manipulation, every moment she tried to twist reality. I did not know if it would ever matter. But I kept going because deep inside I knew one day I might need proof. As the hearing continued, my hands trembled, but my mind became clear. For the first time in years, I realized this was not just about survival, this was about truth. When it was my turn to speak, the courtroom felt heavy. Every eye was on me, waiting for me to fail, waiting for me to prove her right. But I did not break. I spoke slowly, clearly, and with a strength I did not know I had. I told them everything. At first, people looked skeptical, until I asked for permission to present my evidence. That was the moment everything began to shift. The room changed the second my evidence was placed in front of the judge. Silence fell like a weight pressing down on every person in that courtroom. My stepmother, who had looked so confident just moments ago, shifted slightly in her seat, but she still believed she was in control. She was wrong. The first recording played and her voice filled the room, but it was not the sweet, gentle tone she used in public. It was cold, sharp, and calculating. Every word she had ever whispered to break me echoed through the speakers, telling me I was nothing, telling me no one would ever believe me. I watched as the expressions around the room changed slowly at first, then all at once people leaned forward listening more carefully. The judge removed his glasses and stared at the evidence with a focus that made my heart race. More recordings followed, each one revealing a different layer of her manipulation. There were moments where she admitted planning how to make me look unstable, moments where she laughed about how easily she could control my father, moments where she described exactly how she would push me until I reacted just enough to make her lies believable. My father sat frozen. His face lost all color. I could see the realization hitting him piece by piece. The woman he trusted, the woman he loved, was not who she pretended to be. Then came the journal entries. Every page documented every detail of my life under her control: dates, times, conversations, patterns. It was not emotional, it was precise, clear, and undeniable. The judge asked questions. Serious, direct questions. And for the first time, Elena did not have immediate answers. Her composure began to crack. Her voice lost its smoothness. She tried to explain, she tried to twist the narrative again, but it was too late. The truth was already in the open, and it was louder than anything she could say. The final piece was a video. I had almost forgotten about it, but it turned out to be the most powerful evidence of all. It showed her standing in the living room, speaking on the phone, unaware that she was being recorded. She was explaining her plans step by step, how she would isolate me, how she would convince my father, how she would use the legal system to remove me completely. When the video ended, the courtroom was silent. Not the kind of silence filled with doubt, but the kind filled with shock. The judge leaned back slowly and looked directly at her. Everything had changed. In that moment, I was no longer the girl being accused. I was the one revealing the truth. The decision that followed felt unreal. The case against me was dismissed immediately. But it did not stop there. An investigation was ordered into her actions. What she had done was not just manipulation, it was calculated abuse and an attempt to misuse the legal system for personal gain. My father tried to speak to me after the hearing. His voice was broken, filled with regret, but I could not respond, not yet. The pain was too deep. The years of silence, the years of not being believed, had left scars that would take time to heal. But something inside me had changed. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Not because everything was perfect, but because the truth had been seen. I walked out of that courtroom with my head high, not as a victim, but as someone who had fought through darkness and refused to be erased. In the weeks that followed, everything continued to unfold. The investigation revealed more than anyone expected. There were financial motives, hidden actions, even attempts to manipulate other situations in similar ways. Her entire image collapsed under the weight of truth. People who once believed her began to see her for who she really was. And me. I started rebuilding my life step by step. It was not easy, healing never is, but I was no longer alone in my reality. I no longer questioned my own mind. I found strength in my voice and power in my story. Because sometimes the people who try to break you are the same ones who unknowingly give you the reason to become stronger than ever. And that day in the courtroom, when the judge looked closer, was the day everything changed. Not just for them, but for me forever. Revenge Water Official.